I'm very good, Renu. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Well, welcome everyone to the June 2026 edition of the European Urology Podcast.
That's right. So what we've done with the European Urology family of podcasts, like we have our family of journals, is we're merging the European Urology podcast, which I've been hosting over the past couple of years, with the European Urology Oncology podcast, which you've
I've been hosting. And it turns out we work best when we're together, Declan.
Yes, that's what we got from feedback. They said, why don't you just merge the podcasts? And it feels a bit familiar for us here in the GUcast studio as well, of course.
That's right. So we'll be aligning with the monthly editions of the main flagship journal, European Urology, and we'll have Editor-in-Chief Alberto Briganti on, and we'll pick his brain about the highlights of the issue.
Yeah, and so Albie's actually volunteered to dial in every month, which would be great. So I think...
So we're holding you to that, Albie.
Exactly. Hearing from the Editor-in-Chief about, why he picked these papers and some tips and tricks for how to get published in European Urology, and we'll be talking to him very shortly here on this month's podcast as well. So that's a highlight. We're looking forward to that.
Absolutely. And also with the bi-monthly editions of European Urology Oncology, and we hope to have Editor-in-Chief Morgan Repre on for those episodes.
Fantastic. And then we have, of course, two other big journals in the family of journals in European Urology. We have European Urology Focus, led by our friend Christian Gratzky, and European Urology Open Science, led by Jochen Walz. And we'll be reaching out to them and their editorial teams to help highlight what they've got coming in their journals as well.
Absolutely. And we'll have some special guests along the way, so make sure you tune in and make sure you subscribe.
Yes, please do. So just search European Urology wherever you get your podcasts and you'll find us.
So to kick off this month's episode, Declan caught up with Albie. Declan, what do you have lined up?
Yeah, I caught up with Albie earlier on today. So we asked him to highlight 3 of the papers that he's chosen for the June edition of European Urology, and gives a quick overview of those. And actually, 2 of those 3 papers, Renu, we've already done featured podcasts in the recent weeks on GUcast. So we'll actually edit in a couple of clips from those. So 3 papers he's picked out. And also, it's been Impact Factors release week, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's caused a lot of excitement within the journal. So I'm sure you touched on that with Albie.
Exactly. So let's go and catch up with our Editor-in-Chief, Alberto Briganti, to talk about his highlights in this month's edition and what he thinks of these new impact factors. All right, well, so let's now go to Milan and catch up with our Editor-in-Chief, Alberto Briganti. Alberto, how are you? Thank you for joining us on the European Urology podcast.
Thank you very much, Declan, for your kind invitation. I'm really pleased to be here with you today. It's a true pleasure, and I'm very excited of the possibility to share with you and the audience about the novelties and the major news on the journals.
Well, thank you so much. And as myself and Renu were just saying, it's exciting times because we've now merged our podcast into one big monthly podcast heralded by European Urology, but we'll be featuring content each month from our sister journals within the European Urology family. So thank you again for supporting the European Urology podcast initiative. And myself and Renu are very excited to be combining together for this format. So, and you'll be a regular guest. We've kind of pinned you down to say, Alberto, we know that we like hearing from the boss about, what are the highlights and what are you looking for in these papers. So look, before we dive into the 3 papers that we've picked out, just to have a quick discussion about this month from European Urology, from the June edition. It's also that time of the year when the impact factors get released, of course, and all the journal editors and staff around the world are anxiously looking to see what the new impact factors are. You and I have talked before about how it's not all about impact factor, but it certainly is one of the key metrics for journals and for authors in determining where we're going to submit our work. And we do look at impact factors. So first of all, I suppose I should say congratulations to you as Editor-in-Chief of European Urology, because your impact factor has risen from 25 up to 29.1 in the latest figures just released this week. So yeah, congratulations to you. What's your reaction to that?
So thank you very much, Declan. So in the beginning, I couldn't believe that, when I saw the number. But as you were mentioning already, impact factor is only a number, it's only one metric, and it's a result of not only myself, of course, it's a really team working, and I have fantastic editors, including yourself, and many people working for the journals that help us in developing new initiatives like this one, but many others. And I would like to thank all the editors of European Urology, the young assistant editors as well, our statistical editors, imaging editors, and anybody who has contributed to this great team. But again, as you were saying, it's not only European Urology, it's the family of journals, right? So I'm today representing 3 other journals who are actually also showing excellent results and are very good shape. So to me, it's a real honor to coordinate this group of journals of the EAU, and I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, and let's do that. Let's give a shout out to the 3 other journals in the family, as you like to call them: European Urology, Oncology, 8.5 impact factor. Congratulations to Morgan Rupre and all of the team on EUO. European Urology Focus, 6.3. With Christian Gratzky, having been running that for many, many years now. Congrats to Christian and all the team. And European Urology Open Science, the most recent addition to the family, who's probably only been getting the impact factor for a year or two. That's our open source journal as well, 4.3. So congratulations to Jochen Walz and all the team. These are good performances in the really competitive world of scientific publishing, Alberto.
Yes, Declan, it's really competitive. As you know, there are many journals that compete nowadays in the editorial space. So it's a matter of different like features and different also ways we can also promote our papers like we do today. But there are many initiatives that indeed are taking place at the journal. So the competition is huge, and having a platform of journals like ours that can deliver fast and a good science with a thorough pre-review process in a very systematic way, I think it's a real added value of the journals. And of course, it's a family of journals. So in a way, we help each other in all the activities we do. And I just want to mention one thing, which I really need to say, that it's not myself again, it's the team, but also previous editors-in-chief like Jean Catto, Francesco Montorsi, and of course Claude Schulman, who actually built the foundation for all the journals over the years. And of course, thank to all the authors and readers for believing in us and for trusting us in sending the papers and their best science.
Well said, and here to that. Now, what it does mean practically is that it's going to be, I'm afraid, even more difficult to get your papers accepted. In European Urology in particular, an impact factor of that height creates its own attraction, and this is what you want. This is what we all want, to be attracting the highest quality papers. But it means the papers will have to be very high quality. And it's one of the things we're keen to do in the coming months with you on the European Urology podcast, with you and some of our triage editors as well, is to really try and dig into understanding what is it that attracts you to a key paper to say, yes, we're going to send that out for review, and or what sort of, systematic reviews. And also, something a lot of people don't appreciate is, it's not the original articles. It's what about the brief correspondence type formats as well. So we look forward to that in coming months. We want to sit with you and really focus on that. So people can try and learn what is it that makes a really good paper to get into this family of journals. So I know you're keen to do that, and we're going to try. We know that from feedback that's what our listeners and our viewers want to do, is understand a bit more what's going on behind the brains of the people looking at these papers. So thank you so much, and congratulations again. Now you have picked out 3 papers out of the fantastic selection of papers we have in this month's June edition of European Urology. The full details are in the show notes, so we're not going to dive into great detail with this. This is more to see what caught your eye on these 3 papers. The first of which is this paper called Multiparametric MRI and Vesicle Imaging, VIRADS, of course. This is the Bladder MRI paper for bladder cancer diagnosis. And this is a guide for clinicians from the American College of Radiology VIRADS Steering Committee. So, Alberto, I suppose we've been used to PIRADS now for more than 10 years, PIRADS version 2 or whatever PIRADS version we're into. But it still feels very much like we're only at the start of the journey of MRI for staging of bladder cancer. And this paper, led by our new imaging editor, Valeria Panebianco, and team, it seems to be really important to me in helping us clinicians understand it. As I say, full links are in the show notes. But yeah, what is it about this paper that made you think it's a good fit for the journal?
Yes, I mean, this, by the way, a paper that we commissioned to the Viral Study Committee because we felt it was a very important topic that is gaining more and more attention and importance in our everyday clinical practice also. Because as you were mentioning, we are not there yet in implementing MRI every day in our practice, but we should more and more, especially in certain clinical settings like those patients who are potentially candidates for bladder preserving strategies, or those patients in which we want to indeed better evaluate the response to systemic therapy. And even in those patients, and there is some evidence already published in which we may even skip TURBT for initial tumor diagnosis like we do in other tumors. So having a reliable imaging tool may actually impact significantly the way we manage bladder cancer, both at diagnosis and at post-treatment reevaluation. So MRI and variants is certainly here to stay. And I think this article is a good guide for clinicians to better understand how to implement in practice and what we can ask to MRI in our everyday clinical practice, indeed.
Yeah, look, I totally agree with you. And you're right, that quite disruptive idea. And Nick James and Nick Jim Caddo have led a very good trial on this in the UK, the Bladder Path trial, showing the value of bladder MR that potentially could even replace classic TURBT. That's a very disruptive idea for urologists, but we need to be understanding this a bit better. And I think this paper is a very welcome part of it. What we plan to do, and as you know, our sister podcast, GUcast, does dive into a lot of this in detail. And we have an episode coming up in the coming months because of this paper, where we want to reach out to Valeria and some of the other leaders in this area, so we can try and understand the clinical implications in a longer format. But yes, that's a very nice paper. The full links are in the show notes. So if you or your team are not yet using MR for bladder cancer staging and diagnosis, and I think it's fair to say most units around the world are not, well, this is a really useful guide, to understand the VIRAD system and what's coming towards us. So that is the first paper. Editor's choice, it gets listed as in the journal. The second one is this very nice paper led by Shilpa Gupta and colleagues titled Optimal Management of Muscle-Invasive Bladder Cancer, Recommendations from the International Bladder Cancer Group, with a very multidisciplinary international authorship. Senior author Ashish Kamat, previous associate editor of EUO when you were working there, Albi. So this is a fast-moving area, muscle-invasive bladder cancer, an area that didn't move very much for very many years. But now we see, for example, things like perioperative therapy with EV Pembro coming right forward, and adjuvant strategies with durvalumab, for example. So I think this is a very nice review as we sit here in mid-2026 for the, as they say, optimal management of muscle-invasive bladder cancer. Yes, so what was it that attracted you to highlight this paper as an editor's choice in this month's edition of the journal?
Yeah, Declan, that's a very good question, because you were mentioning earlier on what is important for editors. So what we prioritize when we select papers. And this is one of these, in the sense that this has been selected because of its practical utility and recommendations given by expert opinions and by expert group. The IBCG, of course, is a well-established worldwide group. Sometimes, Declan, we do not need systematic reviews which are already well performed in the topic, but sometimes we value also expert opinion, provided that they're given after a process which is established and methodologically rigorous. But like Delphi consensus processes are important for us in many instances, because when we lack strong evidence, or when we want to have like opinions on key opinion leaders, I think these contributions can give important guidance for urologists and medical oncologists and radiation therapists. And this is a typical example on how a group of experts can shape, in a way, recommendations according to current practice, according to availability of treatments. And I believe this is a great paper in the sense that give guidance to the way we should manage muscle-invasive bladder cancer in this fantastic landscape of new treatments. And as you were mentioning, not only perioperative IO, but also the combination with EV, for example, change our practice both in cisplatin eligible or ineligible, even though, as we know, is not available in all countries yet, but still. We need to keep the pace and actually being updated about all these new evidences.
I totally agree with you. And that's why the title is Optimal Management, because we understand as we read these papers in mid-2026, our big global readership in the Platinum Journal will not have access, like we don't in Australia, to EV Pembro up front or even durvalumab in an adjuvant setting. But it's still very important for us clinicians to be able to get our heads around it, because there are so many headlines coming now out of all the big oncology meetings almost every year, bladder cancer, and a lot of it is in this muscle invasive stage. So that's what I think is really nice about this paper for the average urologist like me. Trying to keep up to date with this can be challenging with all these perioperative regimens. So that's why I really encourage this. If you work in muscle invasive bladder cancer, as nearly all urologists do, at least diagnosing it, this paper is a really useful guide. And actually, we have had Shilpa Gupta here in the GUcast studio recently, Alberto, for a really deep dive into some of this new work around EV Pembro. And we spoke to her a little bit about this optimal management paper. So I'll just play you in a little clip, a little teaser for that episode with Shilpa as well.
Absolutely. Shilpa, congrats on this great paper. I mean, truly multi kind of international effort here, but a great resource on the ideal way to manage muscle-invasive bladder cancer.
Thank you so much. And I'm really fortunate to be part of the International Bladder Cancer Group led by Ashish Kamat. And for the last 3 years, we've been doing these live consensus meetings and tackling topics which can help clinicians at the point of care, no matter where in the world they practice. So this was a great topic, given the different therapies we have and the new therapies and how people can refer to this as a practical guide, EV303 showed that using EV Pembro in a perioperative setting, that is 3 cycles of neoadjuvant, followed by surgery and then 6 cycles adjuvant, improved overall survival and event-free survival tremendously. And I think this is the first time we've seen a regimen used in this setting in these really somewhat frail patients who are not cisplatin fit, which showed such phenomenal results.
Yeah, so if you want to hear more from Shilpa Gupta and colleagues, we have the link in the show notes here as well to bring you to that episode of GUcast as well. And then the third one this month, moving to prostate cancer, Alberto, is the Co-PSMA trial. Now, this was presented at the EAU this year in London and then published in the journal online a couple of weeks later. And wow, yeah, for anyone working in biochemical recurrence in prostate cancer, this got everybody's attention straight away at the Co-PSMA trial led by Louise Emmett from Sydney, our colleague Louise Emmett and team. And this is basically looking at copper PSMA, comparing it with gallium PSMA, with the classic PSMA small molecule ligand we've been getting used to for more than 10 years now. And it was a small prospective trial of patients with biochemical recurrence, a PSA above 0.2. And in this small trial, they got both a gallium PSMA and a copper PSMA. And the idea was to see whether copper would improve the performance, the clinical utility. And it did. I mean, it really did. The detection rate and the management impact rate is much higher. Again, the links are in the show notes, so you can read more details there. But yeah, what was it about this small prospective trial that caught your eye?
Yeah, I mean, this is another example of a nice and nicely done trial, which actually does not include that many patients, but give a signal of efficacy and sensitivity and performance characteristics in terms of improved way we can detect metastasis in the setting of biochemical recurrence after radical prostatectomy. So another example of a great study, maybe not involving hundreds of patients, but still very possible, influential for our practice and potentially practice changing, I believe, because from there you can test that in additional prospective cohorts. And actually, and of course, we all know the limitations of the gallium PSMA in practice. And whenever we can increase sensitivity, whenever we can detect more metastases, especially in the lower PSA ranges, I mean, we can eventually, as the study shows, change the way we manage prostate cancer. Of course, management change is not the main endpoint of any trial, but still can help us in shaping in a more precise way the way we manage biochemical recurrence in these patients. So a fantastic study from a fantastic group involving a group of patients which we consider enough to report a signal of importance of the new tracer. And I am very happy that the group submitted to us this trial, which I believe will be impactful and will open the door to new phase 3 studies, I believe, in the field.
Well, and actually we did catch up with Louise and Matt Roberts, urologist, on the study for a full episode in GUcast. And again, we'll play you a little clip of that just to whet your appetite a bit more. Louise, tell us a bit about this trial, the Co-PSMA trial. Tell us a bit about your study design and what you found when you compared copper PSMA with PSMA 11.
Yeah, so it's a super simple trial design. It's just a head-on prospective comparison. Patients who had a rising PSA between 0.2 and 0.75 following radical prostatectomy hadn't yet had salvage phosphoradiotheraapy, but were being considered for salvage phosphoradiotheraapy, were eligible for the trial. They were enrolled. They had the gallium PSMA 11 PET undertaken first. That was done a minimum 60 minutes after injection. We used LASIK, so we used state-of-the-art in terms of how we acquired the gallium PSMA 11 scan. And then within 3 weeks, but it was actually on an average about 6 days later, they had the copper SAR-bisPSMA PET scan. So they had the injection. We did a 1-hour scan. Then they came back the next day and we did a 24-hour scan. Yeah, so the per patient detection rate was strongly, was significant statistically. We had a 0.48 versus 1.26 per patient detection rate, and that p-value was 0.0001. And when you look at lesion count, that was a 24 lesions identified on the gallium compared to 63 lesions identified on the copper. And the percent detection was 36% for the gallium compared to 78% for copper in terms of per participant detection rate. So about double.
Well, that's a bit of a headline, isn't it? I mean, it's very interesting, isn't it?
And then when,
Wow.
it is incredible. And then when you think about any of these new technologies, Matt, I guess so much rides on what difference does it make to your management.
The fact that we can now see and detect the disease in 76-8% of patients, it means, those patients are much more likely to get the treatment they need and be cured. And so the management impact, I think that's part of why the management impact was so substantial, because with a lot of these patients who probably had negative scans, patients and clinicians probably opted for observation.
So, Alberto, a comment in addition I would make about that, and congratulations again to Louise and everyone involved in Co-PSMA, is that this is an example, I think, if you're trying to understand what does the editor-in-chief look for. And, you're trying to say, well, okay, look, this is a thing that could turn out to be a big thing. So there could be, a phase 2, phase 3 trials might come out of this. It may go into initial staging. There may be some theranostic component. And then if this is the kind of first in human prospective experience, well, this could be a real, really important or be reflected on as a really important initial experience. So I presume something like that, I remember your mentor and predecessor, Montorsi, saying years ago, I remember writing it down at a European Urology course, must be 15 years ago, when someone asked him the question, what do you want to see when you're coming and looking at these abstracts every day? And he said, prospective. He said, it's the first word I look for. He said, okay, great if it's also multi-center and great if it's also randomized. But he said, prospective. Did you set out ahead of time with a research question and a protocol and some statistical plan, etc.? And I remember it still rings true. And I passed this advice on to others as well to say, that's the word that the editor-in-chiefs are looking for. And this is a small study, I can't remember, 50 odd patients, but prospective with an interesting novel agent that might change practice. So that surely is what's catching. It's not 800 retrospective things. No. It's prospective. That's surely something that really matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And this applies also, for example, in the setting of imaging and new imaging approaches or new tracers. I mean, in many of these studies, you don't have hundreds of patients when you do these first in-human evaluations. So you don't need to have hundreds of patients. You need to have a prospective, thorough assessment of the tracer and of the imaging approach. We have, for example, accepted the first in-human evaluation of a novel tracer for prostate cancer, which is ACP3, which actually showing very good performances. The same applies to CD70 for kidney cancer. So we do not need hundreds of patients to eventually report these initial results, because these are typical examples when a nicely done prospective small study, again, can open the door to novel approaches, even in other settings. You were mentioning going from recurrence to staging or even to theranostics. So food for thoughts and the nice potential for these studies.
Well, there you go. 3 of our highlight papers this month. Links are in the show notes. And of course, lots of other great content in the June edition as well. Alberto, congratulations again on the impact factors and on the great work in the journal. Thank you for joining us. And we look forward to you joining us again next month, because you're promising you'll dial in almost every month and share your thoughts with us on the Platinum Journal.
Thank you so much. And again, let me thank you again on behalf of the entire editors for the great work that you and Renu are doing with our podcast. We are really grateful, and I'm sure this will help growing the journal even more.
Thank you so much.
Well, fantastic. Great to hear from Albi to kick off this first episode of the European Urology podcast. We'll be back next month with the next episode. So please make sure you stay tuned, and please make sure you subscribe.
See you then.